US President Donald Trump has been busy, very busy.
They came in so fast and so hard, and these guys knew exactly what to. Let's go, come on, get in, let's go, blah. They came one right after another, not at the same time. They don't want to come at the same time. They had to come right after each other. They didn't have any room.
And while we're glad he's finally living his truth, we think there are probably more important things to be focusing on right now. Good evening. It's Wednesday, April the 8th, 2026, day 39 of the Iran war, or possibly day 1 of something that is being called a ceasefire and is not yet behaving like one. The ceasefire that isn't quite a ceasefire, brokered by a country nobody asked, with terms that 3 different parties are describing 3 different ways, one of which, buried in the Persian language version, includes a phrase about uranium enrichment that somehow went missing from the English translation. We'll get to that. Also tonight, the Artemis 2 crew has officially turned the corner toward Earth, making history by calling the ISS from the dark side of the moon, only to find the toilet is broken. The Pope, the American one, the new one, called Trump's threat to destroy Iranian civilization, that's truly unacceptable. And 1,000 ships are waiting to transit the Strait of Hormuz at a rate of 10 to 15 per day. That backlog will clear in approximately 2 months. The ceasefire lasts 2 weeks. We have a lot to get through. Let me walk you through Tuesday evening in real time, because the sequence matters more than the headline. Tuesday morning. Trump posts on Truth Social that a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again, if Iran does not reach a deal and reopen the Strait of Hormuz by 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This is the President of the United States describing the planned annihilation of a nation of 85 million people in a social media post before lunch. The Iranian government spokesperson responds that the threat is a sign of ignorance and that threatening a civilization is, more than anything, evidence of not knowing its history. Tuesday afternoon, US and Israeli strikes hit 2 bridges and a train station in Iran. Military infrastructure on Karg Island, the oil hub Trump has been talking about seizing for weeks, is targeted. 2 petrochemical hubs in southern Iran are struck. The message being delivered is, look what comes next if you don't deal. 7:58 p.m. Eastern. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif posts on X asking Trump to hold off the bombing and asking Iran to reopen the strait for 2 weeks as a goodwill gesture. 8:06 p.m. Eastern, 6 minutes after the deadline, Trump posts on Truth Social that he is suspending bombing for 2 weeks. He writes, "This will be a double-sided ceasefire." He says almost all points of contention have been resolved. He calls it a big day for world peace. He says big money will be made. He tells Iran it can begin reconstruction. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says, if attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations. For a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces. Both sides declared victory. Iran's Supreme National Security Council said nearly all war objectives have been achieved. The White House said Trump's military got Iran to reopen the strait. These statements cannot both be accurate descriptions of the same event. One of them is performing for a domestic audience. Possibly both. Now. Here is the part of this ceasefire that is not receiving proportional coverage, because the part that is receiving proportional coverage, the relief, the oil price drop, the stock surge in Asian markets, is undeniably real and undeniably significant. I do not want to be the person who refuses to acknowledge that 40 days of active bombing has paused, and people in Tehran and in Kuwait and in shipping lanes across the Gulf are breathing slightly easier tonight. That is real. I am acknowledging it. Here is also real. In the Persian language version of Iran's 10-point ceasefire plan, the phrase acceptance of enrichment regarding uranium appears. That phrase was missing from English versions shared by Iranian diplomats with journalists. When this was pointed out, no clarification was forthcoming. There are currently around 1,000 ships backlogged at the Strait of Hormuz. Only 10-15 are likely to pass per day under Iranian military coordination. At that rate, approximately 150 to 210 ships would transit during the 2-week ceasefire, leaving the bulk of the backlog in place when the deal expires. Israel says the ceasefire does not include Lebanon. Pakistan's Prime Minister says it does. The Lebanese state news agency reports that Israeli forces continued their assault across southern Lebanon in the hours after the announcement. This is a ceasefire with a missing clause about nuclear enrichment, a shipping backlog that the ceasefire period cannot clear, a Lebanon carve-out that the broker denies, and 2 parties who have announced victory on mutually incompatible grounds. It might hold, it might collapse. What it is not is peace. It is a pause. With footnotes. Meanwhile, 400,000 kilometers away, the crew of Artemis 2 has officially turned the corner toward home. They've spent the morning calling the ISS from the lunar far side, presumably to check if it's safe to come back or if the neighbors are still fighting over the fence. It's the ultimate caravan trip. Great views, high speeds, and apparently, according to NASA reports, a toilet filter that's given up the ghost. It's the perfect metaphor. Humanity can conquer the moon, but we're still in a load of shit no matter how advanced we get. Pope Leo XIV, the American one, the new one, the one nobody quite expected, looked at the President of the United States threatening to annihilate the civilization of 85 million people and said, and I quote, that this was truly unacceptable. Now, popes say things. Popes have been saying things about war for 2,000 years, and the wars have largely continued. I'm not going to suggest that a papal statement changes the military calculus of a conflict involving cruise missiles and drone swarms, but I want to note the specific strangeness of this moment. The first American pope, elected from a country that is currently bombing a nation of 85 million people, said the threat to destroy that nation was unacceptable. The administration contains men who described the same war as a defense of Christian civilization. Vance said this from a stage in Budapest yesterday. The Pope is the head of the Christian civilization these men claim to be defending. The Pope disagrees with their methods. This is one of those moments that will look from a distance of 20 years, either completely obvious or completely strange. I'm not sure yet which one it is, but I wanted to say it out loud, in case someone needs a record of the week when the American vice president flew to Hungary to defend Christian civilization, while the American Pope said the Christian thing to do was to stop. In all the coverage of this ceasefire, I want to draw your attention to the country that actually made it happen, because it is being treated as a footnote, and it is not a footnote. Pakistan brokered this deal. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir called Tehran, and proposed the framework that both sides accepted. The talks going forward, scheduled for Friday, will happen in Islamabad. Pakistan is a country with its own active conflicts, its own economic pressures. It is not a neutral actor in the sense of having no interests. It is a strategic actor who saw an opening and took it. The country that stopped the bombing is a Muslim-majority nuclear state in South Asia that nobody elected to the role of global peacemaker. Everyone today is talking about the Strait of Hormuz reopening. I want to talk about what reopening actually means in practice, because the coverage of this point has been, to use a technical term, optimistic. Around 1,000 ships are currently backlogged. Only around 10 to 15 ships are likely to pass through the strait each day. At that rate, only around 150 to 210 ships would transit during the 2-week ceasefire, leaving the bulk of the backlog in place when the deal expires. The ceasefire is 2 weeks. The backlog clears in 2 months. Oil fell 17% on the ceasefire announcement. That is real relief. The EIA still expects gasoline prices to peak at $4.30 a gallon this month. The EIA also assumes the war does not last past April, decided which one tells you more about what happens next. I want to use the final 2 minutes to name the things that kept happening on Tuesday while the world watched a clock and a Truth Social feed. Lebanon. Israeli forces continued their assault across southern Lebanon in the hours after the ceasefire was announced. The strikes continued. In New Zealand, jet fuel has hit $200 a barrel. Flights are being cut. New Zealand has no oil, it has no gas, it has an airspace, and airlines, and all of them are downstream of a body of water 7,000 miles away that a country of 85 million people has been using as a pressure valve. Tuesday night, Trump threatened to wipe out a civilization. By Wednesday morning, there was a ceasefire with contradictory terms, 1,000 ships still waiting, and an American pope telling the American government that none of this is acceptable. I've never been less certain what happens next than I am right now. Anyone telling you they know is selling something. What I know is that the world is complicated, the ceasefire is fragile, and someone needs to be counting the ships. I am a serious journalist, and this was the news from below. Follow. Someone should be.